everybody, my spooky friends, my spooky gals, my spooky guys, my spooky bays, my spooky ghouls. Everybody is welcome here, as I've said before. Welcome back to Buzztober. We are on day 26 today. I'm so happy that you're here. If you're a first timer, basically every day during the month of October, I'm going to be enjoying a glass of something that gets me a little bit buzzed while I read scary as fuck stories. Like stuff like one of the episodes recently that I was going through and editing, I was like, that was way scarier than I remembered, and it was like making me nervous to edit it. Sometimes that happens. It's so fun. I just wanted to get everybody in the spooky mood, and I personally wanted to get into the spooky mood. So today what I'm gonna do is basically read a story from No Sleep. No Sleep is a subreddit where people basically send in their horror fiction stories. So they're all fiction, but they're written so beautifully. Some of these people who have submitted items have actually become authors from it, have created TV shows from it, have, you know, made movies, different stuff like that. So these stories are fantastic. And most of these I have not read before. I tried to do something a little bit different where I hadn't read the stories before. There's only a couple that I've read that, and I admit it on the episode whenever I do it. Let's go ahead and dive in. So if you are of the legal drinking age of whatever country you're watching this from, please join me in having a nice adult beverage here. If you don't want to drink, that's absolutely fine too. Get yourself a water, be that hydrated queen we know you can absolutely be. That was lame as hell, I'm so sorry. No, but for real, you are absolutely allowed to drink anything that you want. If it's an energy drink, if it's water, if it's juice, if it's soda, whatever feels right to you, please join me. And just as I always do, I tell you guys exactly what I'm drinking today. It is the Peju Cab coming to you from Napa, California. Absolutely fantastic, organic, my favorite domestic, I think, that we sell. So great story. I've had a great personal experience there myself. Would highly recommend if you ever want to go to Napa to definitely check out Peju. Okay, so that's what I'm drinking, but let's go ahead and take a sip and let's dive into today's episode. Okay, so the story that we're going to read today, it's entitled, I've Come to Terms with the Fact That Everything I Know is a Dream. As a preface, please note that this will probably be very long. I don't care if nobody reads it. Everyone in the world could read it and nothing would change. I just need to voice my concerns for my own sake. Perhaps by organizing everything on a page, I can make sense of things. Several years ago, I was in a brutal car accident. I was parked in front of a train track, waiting for the train to pass by. I was the last person not to make it across the tracks. For visualization, there was a solid stream of cars on either side. If I had tried to sneak across, I would have rear-ended the person in front of me before successfully clearing them. I could hear the train approaching and the black and yellow bars lowered in front of me. I'm fascinated by trains, so I was delighted to be so close, finally getting a front row seat. The train was about a quarter mile from the crossing when the driver behind me accelerated and nudged me forward a few feet. The bars bent and eventually snapped, and I was knocked joltingly onto the tracks. I panicked and threw the car in reverse, trying to back out. The other car apparently had more horsepower, however, and to my horror, my car stood, aligned perfectly with the cattle guard on the front of the train. I scrambled to get out of the car, but forgot about my seatbelt. I nearly strangled myself trying to get free. By the time I unlatched it, it was too late. One fraction of a second of the loudest sound I had ever heard, and then blackness and silence. I was certain that I had died. I didn't feel any pain, and certainly if I had survived, I'd definitely be in agony. I tried to open my eyes, but nothing would happen. I tried to make a sound, to wiggle my fingers, or do anything, but I couldn't. It wasn't that I was paralyzed. It was more like I didn't have a body to manipulate. I was just a mind submerged in a pool of nothing. The only sentiment I felt was that I had returned to the state after being gone for a long time, like forgetting how your parents' house smells until you visit home for the first time for the holidays. Gradually, I started to have feelings of sensation. Passing waves of warmth and wetness finally allowed me to determine where the edges of my body were. Almost as soon as I became aware of my physical self, it began to ache. I felt as if every inch of me had been pummeled with a baseball bat, the heavy wooden kind. Even opening my eyes was a spectacular ordeal. I was in a hospital, so I had survived after all. People moved to surround me. Faces that never really came into focus hovered above my own, and sounds that vaguely resembled speech seemed to reach me through the water. It wasn't long before I felt weak again and my eyes closed. This fading in and out of consciousness lasted for what felt like a very long time, maybe months, though the doctors told me it was only a matter of days. After that, I worked on speaking and swallowing food, which seems silly, but It was actually a challenge at the time. Finally, as more and more casts were removed, I was allowed to sit up and turn my head, for which I was incredibly grateful. According to my family and my then-girlfriend Sarah, all of whom were overjoyed at being able to speak with me, I was asleep for several days on end after the crash. I remember Sarah specifically saying she had missed being able to stare at those beautiful eyes. Time passed at an excruciatingly slow pace until physical therapy finally escalated to the point where I could be pushed around in a wheelchair. The doctors were surprisingly hopeful that I'd be able to walk again, but it was what they called cautious optimism. Nobody wanted to tell me I could be independent again, and then have to admit that they were wrong later. Obviously, I was very hopeful myself, though even transferring from chair to bed was a painful challenge. It was around this time that I had noticed I never dreamed anymore. When I slept, I only felt the same nothingness that I felt immediately after the crash. All the days blended together for a while after that. The next memory I can actually separate from the rest is the first time I tried walking on my own. There were staff members holding onto my arms and waist, just in case I fell, and with their help, I made it all the way across the room on my first try. The doctor said they'd never seen such a rapid recovery. I was giddy. Obviously, I wasn't out of the woods yet, but soon I was allowed to live at home again with frequent PT sessions, and some weeks after that, I returned to work. Life was almost normal for a while, except for a very slight limp in my left leg, the side that the train hit me on. I was feeling pretty normal. It was only after about a month of living in my own house that weird things started to happen. The first thing I noticed was that I felt an occasional stinging on my right forearm, like a thin needle was puncturing my skin. It was a tiny prick, maybe twice a day at most. I figured it was just nerve trauma or something and blocked it from my mind. Feigning ignorance was harder to do when I started hearing things, though. While I was reading in bed one night, I thought I heard Sarah crying. I strained my ears to make sure, and I definitely heard her sobs, but very distantly, like I was submerged in a pool. I made my way downstairs quickly, concerned that she had hurt herself or something, but she was just washing dishes in the kitchen. "Are you okay?" I asked cautiously. "Yeah, why?" she said nonchalantly. "No reason. I dismissed these oddities as best as I could. After all, how could anyone expect me to recover from being hit by a goddamn train without some lingering effects? Every so often, mostly when I was trying to fall asleep or sitting in a silent room, I would hear occasional sounds that I couldn't connect at first. Gradually, I determined that they were hospital sounds. Stretchers being rolled across tiled floors, beeping from machines, rapid chatter between nurses and doctors. Although I figured anyone who had suffered as much trauma as I had would experience some degree of whatever I was experiencing, I decided to bring it up with my doctor. He told me it was perfectly normal for someone in my circumstances, and he could prescribe me a sleep aid if I felt it was necessary. I told him it wasn't a big deal. I was just satisfied that a doctor could explain my symptoms. The odd glimpses of what seemed to be my past only increased in frequency. When I slept, I finally dreamed again, but it was always the same thing. If I saw anything at all, it was a hospital room. Sometimes there were other people in the room, and sometimes I was alone with the machines. There was one night in particular in which the dream was more vivid and gripping than usual. My eyes opened warily to see Sarah asleep on a chair beside my hospital bed. "Sarah?" I croaked. She jerked awake. "Henry!" She scrambled to my side, clutching my hand. At this point, it occurred to me that I was dreaming. I stared right into Sarah's eyes. "I'm asleep right now." She seemed concerned. "No, Henry, you're finally awake. I'm right here. It's been so long." "Of course you would say that. You're a part of my dream." I smiled, amused. "I'll probably wake up any second." But as I spoke, the familiar soreness caught up on me all at once. It practically knocked the wind from my lungs. "Henry, no." Her distress was now evident. "I don't know what you're talking about. Stay with me, Henry. Stay awake. Look at me." I shook my head defiantly and closed my eyes. When I opened them, I was back in my own bed. It was about 3 a.m. I sat awake, pondering what I had just seen. I thought I heard Sarah crying again, even though I could see her sleeping beside me. When Sarah finally woke up, she rolled over and laid an arm across my chest. "Good morning, big guy," she smiled groggily. "If I was asleep right now, would you tell me?" I asked. "What?" she chuckled. "It's kind of heavy stuff to drop on a sleepy person." "Just bear with me. If I was asleep right now, dreaming, you know, would you tell me?" "Well, I feel pretty real," she noted, patting different parts of her body. "Do you think I'm not real?" "Of course not," I said. We got ready for our day. I couldn't stop thinking about my dream, though. I noticed that when I tried really hard to space out at work and listen closely enough, I could hear the hospital sounds more clearly. I was naturally concerned about this. That night, I went to bed early, and just as I thought, I was transported immediately to the hospital bed. I felt the thin sheets beneath my fingers. I opened my eyes, and Sarah was reading a book in the same chair as before. I just looked at her for a long time, trying to discern if she was real. She certainly seemed real, though. She turned pages with the same flourish that she always had, and chewed on one of the temples of her reading glasses. Eventually, she looked up and met my eyes. "You're awake again," she gasped. "Victoria, Paul, he's awake." My parents entered the room moments later, looking excited. I talked with them for a long time. Of course, my parents, too, denied the fact that I was asleep, but that topic passed quickly. Instead, we discussed my condition. I had been in a coma for almost 3 months with little response. They had been slowly losing hope for my recovery until my brain showed signs of activity. Since that time, they had been visiting me frequently, hoping that I would wake up. It seemed like a pretty convincing story. After many hours of talking, I had to stop. I was legitimately sleepy. Of course, they all understood and I fell back asleep. Only this time, I didn't wake up in my own bed. I woke up in the same hospital bed a few hours later. I had to think about it for a very long time, but eventually concluded that I must have imagined my miraculous recovery and had been in a coma the whole time after all. As you can imagine, it was hard to accept at first. Since then, I've been making a second recovery, which has been slower and less successful than the first. That's why, for a long time, I was mostly convinced that I'm really awake this time. Nobody walks after getting blindsided by a train, at least not without lots of hard work. I've still only left my wheelchair on crutches, and it's been 6 years. It probably sounds like a bittersweet ending, and at one point I agreed. I was prepared to live happily ever after in my wheelchair, and maybe even graduate to crutches someday, except for one thing. When I'm getting ready for bed, after I turn off my lamp and my head hits the pillow, I can still hear them, the faint sounds of a busy hospital. I know that many of you will say, "But I'm real. This is real life. Of course you're awake." But that's what you're supposed to say. Nobody's going to tell me, "I'm fake. You're dreaming. Wake up." I'm still asleep, and I've learned to deal with it. I know that nobody I meet during the day is real, but I'm so tired, so I just pretend, and that will have to do. Well, damn, that was good. I'm so sorry, that was very quick. Let's do one more story. Okay, so this next no sleep story is entitled, "Your Face, Your Porn, .mauve." My wife tells me she's cheating on me about halfway through dinner. I work my way through the potatoes, the beans, and most of the meat before replying. Who? That doesn't matter. It very much does matter, I think. I imagine a 6'4", muscular, chiseled Greek god of a man fucking my wife. I think about the way he holds her. Is he gentle? Rough? And the noises she makes for him. Is she quiet? Does she scream for him? Michael. I'm working on the last of the chicken at this point, wondering if she's ever fucked both of us in the same day. Michael, listen to me. I want a divorce. I watched her for a while. Her jaw, the hollow of her neck. Is he better? What? Is he better than me? She purses her lips. I think she's going to tell me that he's just different, that she's sorry it had to be like this, and that she still loves me really deep down, that it was a mistake, and no one could be better than me. But instead, she replies, "Yes, Michael, he's better than you." She tells me that she's staying in the house until she finds a place to rent whilst we sort this out. I say that maybe I should have the bed, and she tells me that, "Trust me, you don't." In our bed? Sleep on the couch, Michael. And so that's where I find myself, working my way through a bottle of expensive scotch I'd saved for a special day and browsing the internet. My browsing is aimless, filthy, meandering. I lurch from website to website going nowhere. That is, until I see an ad. Your face, your porn. Do you want to live out your most disgusting, most depraved fantasies? Do you want to see yourself do it? Using state-of-the-art deepfake technology, we're able to show you what your deepest desires actually look like. See them played out across the screen. The things you've only spoken of in whispers, that you've never even admitted to yourself. Take control of your life. Be the best version of yourself you can be. This is your face, your porn, your reality. I'm in a fuck it sort of mood, more than a little drunk. And I think that this might be the best way to get back at her. I don't even have to leave the comfort of my home, and I can see what I'd look like doing whatever I want. All those things I never told her, the things she'd never do, I can see it. The ad is blank aside from the text on the white screen. That and a tacky gif of red lips blowing a kiss before running their tongue along their teeth. I watch the mouth on the ad blow kiss after lurid kiss at me, and I start to feel convinced. They'll superimpose my face convincingly into any situation, and I'll watch myself carry out my darkest, deepest desires. There are different packages: celebrity, fetish, slice of life, narrative, and on. But one in particular catches my eye. Surprise me. Squinting so that I can read the numbers on my credit card, I subscribe. I fill out a quick form, what I'm into, my kinks, my age, name, and that sort of thing. It then requires me to take a video of my face from different angles, then makes me cycle through a few basic facial expressions, takes a sample of my voice saying a few basic sentences. Not long after, I pass out. I awake to a vicious hangover and a notification on my phone, an email containing the first video. Your face, your purchase.mov. It's really me, or at least it looks exactly like me. It's night and fake me seems to be followed by a camera. Fake me spends the evening going into various shops around town and buying tape and an apple from each store. He seems to make the cashiers nervous, and one girl even starts shaking whilst she tries to find the code for the tape when it won't scan. He is impatient, wraps his knuckles on the desk, calls her a bitch under his breath as he leaves. Wide shot. He walks down the street past the glass window. The cashier is crying silently inside. That's it. I try to click forward to see if there's anything else, but that's it. I watch the whole thing, expecting it to be a build-up to something, but no. Instead, all I see is something that looks exactly like me drive around town and buy apples and tape. I try to see if I can find the website again to cancel my subscription, but I can't find anything. I try and look through my history, but it's not there. In fact, there's just an empty gap between 1 and 3 a.m. Whilst it isn't porn, the technology behind it is amazing. The person on the screen looks exactly, and I mean exactly, like me. I don't go to work. I watch TV, drink beer, and smoke inside. My wife, and she is still my wife, complains. I don't listen. Around 6 p.m., I receive another email. Your face, your gums.mov. The camera is focused on the me that isn't me sat at a table. He's answering questions. It's my voice, my voice. He says he's sorry. He says he does not know, no, he never knew. He is fiddling with something in his mouth above his teeth. He has never heard that name before. He says if they insist, but it's not like he'll like it. The voice behind the camera laughs. Close-up of his mouth. There is a thick black hair protruding from his gum just above his teeth, and he is trying to wiggle it loose. It isn't working until it does, and he pulls out a knot of tangled hairs from his the pink of his gum, and they keep coming and coming until there is nearly a foot of hair, and with each tug, it wobbles his 2 front teeth a little. I hate this. Nasty. He says this has never happened to him before. The voice behind the camera laughs again. I don't sleep that well that night. Something about the video has unsettled me. They're too realistic, and watching that fake me fiddle with his gums made my mouth hurt. I say nothing to my wife when she comes in, make no effort to tidy, take away boxes from the table. She looks at me for a long, long time, as if something is building up inside of her, some thought or opinion about me she's always wanted to tell me. And I watch as it almost bursts out of her lips, and then nothing. I hear something look through our bins as I try to sleep. A raccoon? Someone homeless? They disappear when I get up to look. The notification wakes me up. Another video. I try to reply to the address that's sending me these, telling them I want them to stop, but the email bounces back. I have no choice but to watch. Your face, your trash.mov. The me that can't possibly be me is eating at a new table, but the whole table is covered in trash, dirt, empty cans, pizza boxes, rotting fruit, bones, tiny crawling things, etc. There are flies buzzing aimlessly about. He is shoveling as much as he can into his mouth. Coffee grounds spill down his chin, and he coughs. He keeps looking to the left of the camera after swallowing. He winces, pulls something out from his mouth. A razor. He has bitten a razor. His blood is dark and thick and mixes with the coffee grounds that dribble down his chin so that it looks lumpy and black. It coats his shirt and his hands as he attempts to wipe his face. He looks to the left of the camera again and continues eating. At this point, I consider deleting my account. Something is wrong here. There is something in these videos that's beyond unsettling. I don't remember pulling half those facial expressions, and his reactions are just like mine. It's too real. That's my wince. That's the wince of pain I know I do when I stub my toe or stand on a thumbtack or bite my tongue. But when I get up to fix myself a drink, I find my wife's car is gone, and I know that she's with him, with the guy that she's fucking, and I feel a stab of self-loathing that goes so deep it pierces my stomach and makes me retch. I watch the video again. Evening comes. Your face, your anger. Mauve. He is carrying a bunch of grapefruit in his arms in the street. A small old man bumps into him, and the fruit go flying. They make this wet pop as they hit the floor, and in the noise you can hear the fibers that held the fruit together tear. The man is knocked over. The me that looks too much like me sees someone nearby drinking from a thermos, and grabbing it, empties the scalding water all over the fallen man's face. Close up. The me that shouldn't be me spits on him and winks at the stunned crowd watching. The fallen man moans and spasms. I don't know why, but I sort of like this one. The noise of the fruit is so satisfying, so visceral, and there's something triumphant about the way fake me snatches the boiling water and pours it over the man. Fake me is in control. That evening, my wife tells me she doesn't think she ever loved me, not like the way she loves her new man, and that, come to think of it, I'm not much of a man at all. She says this whilst I try to wipe ketchup from my shirt, but only succeed in getting some on the couch. When she goes to bed upstairs, I watch Your Face, Your Anger. Mauve over and over again. I doze. With my eyes half open, the me that isn't me, the fake me, winks at the camera. My heart goes faster. I pretend to sleep and keep my eyes open just a sliver. Fake me walks from the crowd, right up to the camera, knocks on my screen a few times with his knuckles. It sounds like glass. He watches through the screen, smiling. His eyes are on me, I'm sure of it. He pushes his face against the camera, against my screen, and stares right at me. There is something behind those eyes, behind that face. Something dark and waiting. He keeps watching me. I know he knows I'm awake. We stay like that until morning. Your face, your neighbor. Mauve. He knocks on Mrs. Tay's door. He's holding an apple and tape. She invites him in. He enters and the camera follows. In one movement, he stuffs the apple in Mrs. Tay's mouth and forces her to the ground, where he binds her arms and legs with tape. Someone from off-camera hands him a hammer. Wide shot. Mrs. Tay struggles on the floor. The me that watched me looks through her records and puts one on. It's old and slow, and vinyl crackles as he drags her into the basement. The video continues for half an hour more, until the vinyl has finished and there is just a loop of faint crackle, and then there are two thuds, a snap, and it ends. I can see someone's car I don't recognize in the driveway. It looks expensive. I go and investigate, but can't find anyone near it, so I decide to go and check Mrs. Tay. I stumble down to the street in my dressing gown, face covered in patches of stubble, and knock on her door. No answers. Bill Roberts walks past and I wave at him. Seen Mrs. Tay today, Bill? He shakes his head. I can tell he's trying not to react to how I look, trying to be polite. Haven't seen her in a week or so, Michael. A pause. He's finding the right words, I can tell. You doing okay? You don't look so good. Never better. The combination of emotions I'm feeling is hard to put into words. I'm elated. There is a version of me online who is in control and is acting. I'm also terrified. Whatever it is on that screen knows about me, knows something about my life. I don't know if it is here, in this reality, or if it's just peering in. Either option makes my chest tight. I've drunk the house dry and have made several trips to stock up on liquor. I even call a few old contacts and manage to get some pills, although I promise myself I'll only take them when things get really, really bad. Your Face, Your Trial. Mauve. The shortest video so far. The me I wish was me pushes against his jaw, probing. Slowly, surely, he slides his hand under the skin of my face, until I can see the outline of my fingers under the skin, like 5 giant malformed veins. He wriggles the fingers and the skin comes away from the face. My ring finger emerges from my eyelids. He pulls the hand out and it's covered in some sort of embryonic fluid. He winks at the camera. At me? I tried the same thing that evening after I shaved, pushing my fingers into my face as if the skin is going to slip and I'll be able to do what he did, but nothing happens. My long nails cut the tender, freshly shaven skin, and I end up moving my face the conventional way. I smile, then frown, then stick out my tongue, then puff out my cheeks. Once I'm convinced my face still works, I go to bed. I think my wife sneaks him in the back door. Her lover, her Casanova. I can hear them fuck, I think. I can't wait for morning. Can't wait for a new .mauve. I watch Your Face, Your Trial .mauve on repeat to help me sleep. And when he is convinced that I'm sleeping, he comes right up to the camera again. But this time he fiddles with the edges, as if he's testing boundaries. His breathing gets deeper, lustier. He cannot find a way out, so he just watches, cycling through expressions the way I did, convinced that I am asleep. Am I? When I wake up, there is a note from my wife telling me she's moving in with him for a while. There is a voicemail from work telling me I'm fired, and that there will be no severance pay. Your Face, Your Junkies.mauve. I, finds a couple of junkies on the outside of town. He shows them a huge stack of cash, and they both nod. They have about 6 teeth between them and walk with a pronounced stoop, taking him to an abandoned building on the edge of town. He says, "Go ahead of me, I'll be right in." They pause for a while, trying to work out what the catch is, why this seemingly average guy would offer all this cash up front, but he hands them both small foil packages, and they quickly dash inside. As before, he slowly slips his hand under his skin of his face, working it up and up until both hands are completely underneath the skin. The camera pans down to the rusty gate that borders the property. He hangs something from the gate before walking down the overgrown path into the house. It takes me a while to realize that the thing hanging from the gate is a face. My face. Like a mask, the mouth and eyes are empty. The skin flaps like a heavy flag in the breeze. There is the sound of cars driving past every few minutes. Then 2 noises like grapefruit bursting, fibrous and wet and sudden. He walks back down the path and puts his face back on. I do not manage to see what lies under that face, but I desperately want to. I think my hair is falling out. I take a long walk around the block. When I return, I find my wife staring at my laptop as if she's seen the devil. She turns to me slowly. "What the fuck is this, Michael?" The laptop is positioned behind her back, so I can see the screen and her at once. I remember the contents of Your Face, Your Junkies.mauve and start to panic. If that fell into the wrong hands with no context, I can explain. The videos, they're not me. All of the places, the situations, they're fake, I think. She shakes her head. "What situations? Jesus, Michael. It's just hours and hours of footage of you whispering to the camera. It's just your face. What's fake about that?" I can tell she's a little scared. Her disgust at me slowly morphing into something uglier, nastier. She takes a couple of steps back, as if seeing me for the first time. Behind her, I can see the me that isn't me, the fake smiling at the camera, on screen. The footage is paused, but he's still moving, closer and closer to the camera. His eyes wide with a rigor mortis smile, a smile as if he's just learned how to control the musculature of his face perfectly, and he's holding a finger to his lips. Shh. She takes another step back. I try and warn her, but no words come. Instead, I'm frozen in fear, seeing the fake me grow closer and closer to the camera, to the screen as her back's turned, and he's pushing against the glass of the screen, trying to find a weak point, a crack that will allow him to move from his reality to ours. She can't take it anymore. She turns around, and without looking at the screen, she picks up my laptop and smashes it to the floor. "You're sick." She leaves. The thought of the screen smashed for some reason terrifies me. It's as if whatever barrier is between me and that thing is broken. And although I can't see anything, I feel him leaking into our world, like the soft hiss of gas through a broken pipe, or air escaping a valve. I take the laptop to be fixed, pay extra to make it happen as fast as possible. As soon as the screen is fixed, I take it home, desperate to turn it on to see if there are any new videos, to check the old ones. I try loading Your Face, Your Purchase.mauve, the first video I was sent. A familiar scene plays, except there's no fake me. It's the exact same footage, I'm sure of it, but the me that isn't me isn't there at all. The cashier still weeps silently, but it's not due to any version of me scaring her. I try loading Your Face, Your Anger.mauve. The same, the exact same video, but the fake me isn't there. The man still falls over, coffee is still poured in his face, the crowd still reacts, but there's no me. Your Face, Your Junkies.mauve. is now just footage of two junkies walking to a crack house and entering it. They still don't leave, but there is no face on the gate. Nothing. No sign that I was ever there. The house suddenly feels empty. I can hear the faint tap, tap, tap of the branches against the upstairs window, the gurgling of the drain, the way the old wood creaks ever so slightly with age. I am alone, and I know then that the reason he's not on the screen is because he's here, with me. As I feel sweat start to run down my back, I receive one final email. Your face, your turn, .mov. Wide shot. Me, but the real me this time. Alone. The room is full of trash, rotting food, empty beer bottles, liquor bottles smashed on the floor, pill bottles, crumpled clothes. The real me holds up a hand, waves it. This is live. This is real time. This is happening. Now. The room is dark. Objects are obscured in shadow. Something moves behind the window. A curtain rustles. Bottles clink. He is in here, somewhere. Watching. Waiting. I am alone with myself. And I have all of the time in the world. Gonna take a big old drink after that one. Okay. Okay, don't get me wrong, that story was a dope, but disgusting. Revolting, terrifying, scary. The trifecta, if you will. But I'm gonna go ahead and wrap us up here. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. I'm so excited to see you tomorrow. So please, 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 if you are enjoying this, like and subscribe, comment below as long as it's something good, and go ahead and click that notification bell. That way you can get notifications every single time I upload a video. Thank you so much. Cheers to you. Stay buzzed and stay spooky. Bye.